I have decided that I am going to take the plunge. I am going to make a full proper release game, the likes of which you'd see on Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PC, etc. There are still a lot of things that I need to learn to make the game that I have in mind remotely possible, but I figure it's probably best to learn on the job while building the game piece by piece, since only by doing the job will you actually learn through experience. So what's the plan? Well, I have a game design document that I wrote up about 1 or 2 years ago to propose to a programmer if I ever found one, which never happened, so it's up to me and me alone to make this game possible. The idea is this: you're a robot, you get placed down into a randomly generating dungeon and you go around collecting power-ups, keys and weapons to find the exit door to then move on to a boss. As you make your way through floors, new enemies, power-ups, weapons and upgrades become available to the player. If the player dies at any moment, they get returned to the main hub area in which they can start the game again. So basically we have permadeath mechanics. One mess up and it's all over. For the gameplay, I got the idea from a VR game of all things that you're currently watching now. It's called Compound and it's been out for a few years, but it's really damn good. The idea of it is that you have to take out the CEO of an evil business, so you start from the sewers, then make your way through the building's reception, then you go through the offices, then its executive lounge, and then finally you make your way to the roof. It's a game that can essentially be beaten in no more than 30 minutes, but because of its high difficulty, randomness, permanent death mechanics and mutators, you'll find yourself spending hours in this game. It's a very fun game indeed, but I also kinda like its art style. It's got that old untreated low resolution texture look to it, which I'm not gonna lie, I actually kinda really like this. I like this more than photorealism. I don't know what it is about unfiltered low resolution textures, but they just seem to pop. One advantage of actually doing this kind of art style is that baking textures for lighting to make them more detailed takes no time at all. So not only does it make it look rather cool, it actually also shaves off hours of light baking time. So not only am I gonna try and replicate the art style and gameplay of Compound, but I also have another game in mind that I want to take inspiration from. Metal Arm's Glitch in the System. Hoo-wee, this is a stroke of nostalgia. If you like third-person shooters that also happen to include lots of elements of comedy, then this is your jam.
Will the party or parties responsible for releasing all of the experimental loony bots please return them to their pens? They are shooting the employees. Thank you.
It's an underrated title that only got one game, with a sequel that was in the plans but didn't really sell that well, so the sequel was cancelled and the rights were sold to Blizzard Entertainment, who to this day have held onto the IP for seemingly arbitrary reasons. It's a shame really. Metal Arms is a hidden gem and I would definitely recommend that you play it. So that's the plan, but before we get to the game, I want to talk about the player's character. What his abilities are going to be, what kind of weapons he will use. So here he is, the player character. Or at least in his early form. The textures are a bit crap, as I actually made this character model about a year or two ago. But at the time of making the model, I had a photorealistic art style in mind, so I had to spend some time altering the model a bit, lowering the poly count on some areas of the model, you know, that kind of stuff. I'll get to the texture work a bit later. I'll just use this texture for now as a sort of placeholder. But other than that, I kinda like what I have here, though I may very well change some aspects of the design later down the line. He has some cutesy robot eyes which will be able to use UV distortion to move them around or make some basic gestures. He has an antenna on his back which I'll use dynamic bones to make it wave around as he runs around and does stuff. But most importantly, this character model has upgrades. These can be toggled on and off depending on whether the player has collected upgrades or not. The idea is that the player character will replace his right hand with that of a weapon which he will store in his backpack area. A lid will open up, he reaches inside, and then the new weapon gets switched out. This is actually another inspiration from Metal Arm's Glitch in the System where the character actually does that. I do actually need to build the weapon models, but that'll come at a later time. For now, let's take a look at some of the other models that I've already previously made. A lot of these assets I haven't really opened them in about a year or so, except for one of them which I'll show you shortly, so my memory is going to be a little faded about what my mindset was at the time of creation, but nevertheless, Here I have what I'm gonna call the Juggernaut, or maybe a Lancer because he kind of carries a shield and a minigun, sort of like a lance on his side. I don't know yet, but I recently carried out a lot of work getting this model up to scratch with the current art style that I have in mind, and it took me about a full day's work to get the job done. There's quite a lot to this model, and I've still yet to get to the part where I do all the rigging and all the animating at this point, so there's still quite a lot of work that I need to do on this model. Next up, I have an unfinished model of what I'm going to call the Predator. Again, the mesh isn't completely done yet, and I haven't even started on the texturing yet. I don't really like the look of this at this point, but my idea is that he'll be like some sort of really fast dude who charges at the player with lightsabers to attack. I might give him either the ability to fly or hover, since his head kinda looks like a bat. I can't remember if that was my intention or not, but I'll go with it as I kinda like the head design as it is. And now for what I would definitely consider my favourite enemy design, the Hunter. This guy is going to be about the size of a van and will hover or float around in arenas searching for the player. I'm going to make him really armoured, and as you can see he's outfitted with twin rocket launchers and railguns that will destroy the player if they get spotted, and we'll have to approach them carefully if they want to defeat them. Or at least that's what I have in mind. Obviously I've no idea how I'm going to do the AI yet. I'm going to have to read some documentation about that, maybe come up with some ideas on how I'm going to even be able to comprehend the idea of AI. It's all going to be one big learning process, but anyways, the Juggernaut and the Hunter I've intended to be boss designs who will also have subordinate designs like mini versions of themselves that will appear in standard levels. I'm thinking maybe the Hunter will have like mini versions of himself that look sort of like your average drone that will fly at the player and then self-destruct or something. I'm not sure yet. I haven't really done much of level design. I've only made parts of one level, and by parts I mean like segments, because this is going to be a randomly generated dungeon crawling game. And with this I've just kind of gone for a generic sci-fi theme. I'm not sure if this will be a final thing for use in the game. I might just make it like a beta map or something, just for testing purposes, as I've yet to decide how I'm going to actually be able to generate the maps. But I'm not sure. It's just all in the planning stage right now. As you can see, there's one tile which has a set of double doors which open up once the player has the prerequisites to exit the level. And that's pretty much it for what I have so far. I need to actually make some weapon models and work on some of the things to be able to start making a prototype. I'm going to start with making the player work, like all of the systems working, like the movement, the aiming, the weapon switching and all that stuff. That's going to take the longest time, but I feel like once I've got that done, my level of skill will have increased dramatically, hopefully, so then I can start working on other things like the enemy's AI, how they're going to move, how their level generation system is going to work. Should all be pretty interesting. But until then, I thank you very much for watching. I hope you're into this game as much as I am into making it, and I thank you very much for watching.